Welcome to Hiraeth, the home of modern Welsh politics.
The UK general election campaigns are barrelling towards their conclusion, and due to new constituencies and a record level of retirements and likelihood of change in the political direction in the UK, we're expecting many new faces elected to the House of Commons from Wales. We're taking the opportunity here on the pod to speak to some of these new candidates about their campaigns, their policies, their parties and their constituencies. Ynys Môn is the one constituency that is unchanged following the recent boundary review. The island's geography is as unique as its electorate, who for years have developed a reputation for being independently minded and only changing their MP when the sitting candidate has stepped down, formerly held, of course, by Plaid Cymru's former leader Ieuan Jones, and then UK Labour's Albert Owen, and currently by the Conservatives' Virginia Crosby. The competition is often too close to call between the three parties. So today we're delighted to speak to the candidate competing to retake the seat for Plaid Cymru, who is Ynys Môn Council Leader Llinos Medi. Welcome to the pod, Llinos.
Oh, thank you.
I hope that that's a fair description of Ynys Môn. Independently minded is quite a good euphemism for many things.
Yeah, and when you're born and bred, it's just through you. So yeah, I think everybody that knows me Llinos is independently minded as well.
For our listeners who may not know that much about you, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're standing for election for the House of Commons this time around?
Yeah, I'm Hiraeth Medi, and as you mentioned, yes, I am the current leader of the council here in Ynys Môn. I became the first female leader back in 2017. I'm born a farmer's daughter on the island, a single mum of two children who are here in education on the island. I left school at 16. I went to work in the care sector and did a care course. Being a classroom assistant, I've been a youth worker. I've had several jobs promoting the Welsh language and so on. I've done a lot of volunteering with young people as well. Was pushed into politics because I never thought that I was good enough to be an elected member, and I never thought anybody would actually elect me either. So in 2013, when I became the youngest county councillor in Ynys Môn, it was a bit of a shock. And then in 2015, I became the leader of the opposition, so the leader of Plaid Cymru group on the council. And also in 2015, I was homeless with two children. So my personal life has always been a challenge, but I'm glad that I've had those experiences because they have influenced my politics and in the manner that I also act in my politics as well. So yeah, and then once again, I was persuaded to put my name forward to stand to be a representative here for Westminster, and that was also a challenge to actually have that inner belief that I have the ability to represent the island that I love so much. And I'm so glad that I have done so because the journey on the campaign has been extremely positive, and so many people like that story and feel that they can, and that I'm approachable. And I think politics needs some common sense now. We need to get back to basics and do the basics right.
Excellent. That's a great call back to the 1990s, which is very much the flavour of the campaign so far. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about the distinctiveness of Ynys Môn. How would you describe the constituency as you see it and as Plaid Cymru, your party, sees it? And how does the fact that it retained its characteristics as a standalone constituency shaped your campaign?
Well, our boundaries are totally natural, aren't they? We are an island, and to add an additional piece of land to Ynys Môn just wouldn't have worked geographically and so on. So the challenges are there. And also, when you are islanders, you have that characteristics around your behaviour and so on. And I've met many islanders across the UK that share those characteristics. And I think for us as a party, the island is our community. And that's one thing that all our candidates across Wales stand for is our community and community resilience and making sure that we do the right things for our communities and asking for fairness and so on. So that's how we look at Ynys Môn, and Ynys Môn is my home, so I'm always going to champion it because I've breathed this air since I was born, so it's so important to me.
You're obviously trying to unseat a sitting MP from another party as part of this campaign. How would you rate or review their performance since 2019?
Unfortunate, I would say. It's been an unfortunate. There's been a decline in people's trust in politicians, and that's down to their behaviour and the performance. It's all been skimmed, isn't it? It's been lies. It's been that. It's not been. We've never had. We're going to do this, and this is how we're going to achieve it. There's always been a skew. Something's changed, or they'll dress something up that isn't good enough, and so on. So for the island of Ynys Môn, we've been promised so many things, and actually, the wording is that we've had it, but we're still in the process of all those big promises. So. And actually, since 2019, we've lost more jobs here on the island. So currently today, since having a Conservative MP, there's less employment on Ynys Môn than there was in 2019, which just shows you the state of Ynys Môn, let alone Wales and UK.
So what would you say? Every campaign is kind of national and local at the same time. What are the sort of local issues that are sort of hot topics on Ynys Môn during this election campaign? Is there anything that's different to the kind of broader, UK-wide picture?
So we've got the nuclear development here on Ynys Môn, and also we have a Freeport application in at the moment. We're still in the process of putting in the or confirming the outline business case with that. So obviously those two just align with the jobs. So it just shows you the economy and safeguarding future jobs, and the demography is changing here on the island and so on. So that comes over on the doorstep. But I would say more than anything, it's that need of a local voice and a voice that they can trust. I thought that what people wanted, but the more I've been out talking to people, the more that's been reaffirmed, and that has come across. And then public services as well, and austerity. And I'm glad that's coming over now, because I've been a council leader and making those difficult decisions for years, seeing declining essential services, the most vulnerable in society, being affected monthly by these negative cuts. I'm glad that people have started to recognise the value of public services.
Your central campaign, obviously there's a national campaign from Plaid Cymru, but what are you saying to voters that your campaign is sort of mostly hooked on?
Local jobs, and that's just the economy, energy production and using our natural environment and energy production as a whole, the whole package around energy production comes into that job. Safeguarding rural communities is extremely important as well. And then those public services that are devolved but need fair funding. So even though they're devolved, I find that the devolved has been used like a ping pong. It suits politicians at a certain time to use the devolved banner, but actually we know that central government funds Wales, and then Wales has to make those decisions on how they fund services.
This is the one question that I think is probably fair to describe as a tricky question, but as a council leader, you've probably had to deal with quite a few tricky questions over the years, so I'm sure that you won't shy away from it. So all parties have a national manifesto, but sometimes that there can be a bit of a challenge with that national manifesto and those national campaigns in a locality. Is there anything that you would say that is currently Plaid Cymru policy that you might be struggling with locally, or maybe the centre of Ynys Môn, the voters of Ynys Môn are, not as enthused by?
Nothing yet. There's been, unfortunately, misrepresentation around the nuclear policy, because the Plaid Cymru policy is developing on current nuclear sites, which is Wilfan, Trawsfynydd, and then the wording of that around that has been misused. But I'm a firm believer that there are ways of discussing things anyway. So I'm a firm believer that there are policies in place, and if there are issues within those policies, you sit down and find that middle ground to try and achieve things. So I'm never one to stand against that. I'm a firm believer in actually talking about things. And what I've learned, because I have been a decision maker since 2017, is being mature enough to have conversations and find that way of overcoming an issue. You actually get the best outcome following that sort of process. So it's extremely important that we have that mature conversation around any issues. But currently, I can't say that we've had anything that is negative at all. And I think more than anything now, we have more and more evidence of the neglect that Wales is having from UK government. We've been deprived of many, many years, and we've seen that directly impacting health and education and so on. So our outcomes in education, our quality of lives is all down to the fact that UK government doesn't understand the deprivation that they've created in Wales. And now, we have to, and we must fight the corner of Wales. We have less MPs now doing that, so we need to make sure that they understand the issues in Wales.
I think most people would have put a bet on the answer to that question being around that nuclear question. I suppose, just for completeness, in terms of clarity on what the party's position is and what your campaigning position is on Oilfa, how would you characterise that? Is it I forget the wording, is it no new nuclear sites? Is that the Plaid Cymru policy?
It's nuclear sites. It's new nuclear sites on current nuclear sites, isn't it? Okay. So, and that's the challenge, because no new nuclear sites, people say then, oh, that means no nuclear building of a second builder. No, it is that you use the current nuclear sites. We've got two current nuclear sites in Wales, Trawsfynydd and Wilfa, and that you develop nuclear on that, but not that you don't open another brownfield site, because you'd have to then also put the infrastructure and so on. So it makes sense to use the current infrastructure in those sites and so on. And the skills as well, because obviously we have all the skills agenda around those nuclear sites within those areas.
Thank you. Always a tricky one, that. Thinking about the campaign as it is now, as I mentioned at the top, Ynys Môn is widely perceived as a three-way competition almost every single year. Is that how it feels this year, or is there one party that is more competitive up there than the other at the moment?
I would say on the doorstep, we're getting a very warm welcome. I would say it's closer between us and Labour, but we are heading the polls. We had a very good police commissioner election here in Anglesey. 41% of the vote went to us in Plaid Cymru, and the Conservatives were second in that one, down in, I think, 28% of the vote. So, and that's actually been an election, isn't it? So, it can go any way here in Ynys Môn, as you say, but this time they've actually got a local voice, someone that's born and bred, knows the communities and so on. So I think this time that makes it a bit different here. Yeah,
I did notice the Labour candidate also has the constituency name in their name, which I know is a pretty impressive feat for anybody. So, any revelations about your middle names in this instance? No.
Well, no. It just shows you the creativity of my mother. My father chose my first name, and my mum chose my second name. So my mum's creativity was down to the month I was born. So yeah.
Very good, Diane. So, I suppose from your perspective, we all experience the general election from our own perspectives. And how does the kind of wider general election, how is that experienced on Ynys Môn at the moment?
I think it's been a good campaign for Plaid Cymru, because Hiraeth, as the leader, has been allowed to be on those debates. We've had our message across, we've had that. It is always challenging because you have a two-party approach across the UK. The press feeds on that two-party approach, and I think it's a sad way also, because we've spoken to many people that have moved to the island that are really interested in another home politically. Yeah, I think it is important now that we are able to push ourselves and that we have that equal stage as other party leaders across the UK as well.
Well, we should probably mention as well, for those people who may not know, that you're a member of the Senedd and party leader Hiraeth Pod also shares the same constituency. Presumably that's handy on when it comes to the campaign. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I just see Hiraeth as the leader of our party, and so Hiraeth is that is his role, and just happens to be that we are standing, obviously, that Hiraeth is the member of the Senedd for Ynys Môn. It also means that if I'm elected, that strong voice for Ynys Môn, then that you just can deliver that stronger voice, and that we can work together on issues that are over both governments.
And so, just to wrap our conversation, I suppose we're mid-election campaign as we record. Are you expecting there to be any kind of significant changes on the horizon? Are you looking forward to anything, or are you simply out there just pushing and not going from street to street, knocking doors, speaking to constituents?
No, I think we're going to stick to our agenda, a positive local campaign, talking to as many people as possible. We've had so many people making comments that they've changed their mind and they're moving towards us during this election, so that they like what they hear. We've got several hustings set up, and those are really good, because I love hustings, because you're able to have that direct conversation with people. They want to ask you the question, because I'm a firm believer that politicians should answer individuals' questions. If we want to go around knocking doors asking for votes, then we should also answer individuals' questions, and the hustings is a great arena to do that, and just keep going. A lot of young people showing interest as well, and it's been really good that I've had the young people shouting my name on Plaid Cymru, which means that even that they feel involved in this election, and obviously making sure that young people use their vote is extremely important to me. We're here to represent their future, make sure that we make the right decisions. We're here to care for the generation that will care for us, and to make sure that the future generation has a better stab at it that we've had. So I think it's really good that the young people feel involved in this sort of campaign as well.
Llinos, thank you for your time. Wish you all the best for your campaign, and as is obligatory, all listeners can find out the details of all the candidates standing in the constituency in our show notes. If any of our listeners would like to find out or contact your campaign, can you tell us where they should go on any of the social media platforms?
Yeah, we've got a Facebook page, Medi. We've got Medi Ynys Môn on Instagram, and Medi also on the X, so all the social media are there. And then we have the email, which is quite old-fashioned by now, but obviously you'll get a link to all that if you go on our social media platforms.
Well, fantastic, Llinos. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Hiraeth. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review.